Okay, so we're gonna look at volume of 3D shapes. Friday we looked at surface area, and it's the same shapes in the same measurements pretty much, or for sure the same measurements, but we're gonna be doing volume instead. Yours may not be pink, but just make sure yours says volume on it. So we're gonna start with this one right here. So this, we've got a rectangular prism, since our bases are gonna be rectangles, and our bases are gonna be these two guys off to the side. Remember when we talked about the surface area, we've got our faces, and then you've got your bases off to the side there. So just keep that in mind. We're gonna need to know that here in a second. So I'm looking for volume though, not surface area. So I wanna look at my formula chart, and since it's a prism, pretty much if it's not a pyramid, and you'll know if it's a pyramid, it's gonna be a prism. So we're gonna use volume equals big B times H. So volume equals capital B H. So what that capital B means is that stands for the area of your base. So capital B is area of the base. Okay, so since my bases are these guys, I want to make sure I know what the dimensions are of that. And since it's a rectangle, I'm going to use base times height. So I've got one measurement as 2, so that'll be my height. And my other measurement down here, it's not there, but like we look at if we folded this thing up, if we folded this guy and this guy together to make our 3D shape, those are gonna be the same size, okay? Same measurement. So that means this is 4.3. So let's find the area of our base. That'll be the capital B. So 4.3 times 2, that gives me 8.6. So that is my capital B. So capital B, I'm gonna put 8.6. And remember, those letters just right next to each other mean you're multiplying. So then I want the height. And I want the height of the whole prism. So it's kind of tricky to see on these nets, but if I'm looking at this and I fold this thing up, those bases I just folded in, I'm wanting to see the measurement between those two bases, okay? So the length between those two bases I just folded in, that's my height. That's how tall the prism is. If I set it up like this, how tall is that? So just remember the measurement between, or the length, I guess, the length between bases. That's the best way to remember it. So if I look back up at this net, I got my two bases. Well, what's the length connecting those two? 8.3. So 8.6 times 8.3. So let's work this out. So 8.6 times 8.3, 6 times 3, I got 18, 24, 25, 48, 64, 65, 67, 68, sorry. 15, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 7. And I got 2 decimals in my problem, so I've got 2 decimals in my answer. So that means the volume is 71.38 centimeters cubed. Remember, volume always has that little 3. Okay, now we'll look at the next shape. Now this is a triangular prism. So the difference here is just your bases. Whatever the prism is called, that first word identifying it, that's usually what your bases are. So if it's a triangular prism, that means my triangles are the bases, okay? So we've got a triangular prism. So those guys are my bases. And same thing, that's not a pyramid because I've got a rectangle in there, 3 rectangles, those are my faces. So I've got to use volume equals capital BH again. So volume equals capital BH. Now this is where it gets kind of tricky with this one. So my bases, remember capital B is area of the base. So I've got to find the area of this. And if you have your surface area paper, you've already done this math. So I'm gonna work it out, but if you still have it and you have all that work, then you've already done this. So area of the base, and remember, I need to look and make sure I know what shape my base is. So in this case, it's a triangle. So that means I've got to use area of a triangle formula. So base times height divided by 2. So 6.25 times 4 divided by 2. I'm going to knock those off. So 6.25 times 2. So 4, 5, 1250. So my capital B is 12.5. And then the height, so again, I want the height of the whole prism. So the length between my two bases, between those two triangular sides. So that's gonna be 8.2. So 12.5 times 8.2. So we got 10, 4, 5, 2, 40, 20, 8, 9, 10. So our volume is going to be 102.5 feet cubed. Okay, so these are our prisms. If you want to make a note maybe up at the top that these are your prisms, because you'll use a different formula for the pyramids.